Are you ready? Turn it up! Yeah! Welcome to the noise inside your head. No holding back, we live on the edge. Let's go!
And welcome back into another episode of Sage Against the Machine, the podcast that tells it how it is and speaks truth to power. I'm Nathan Sage, a former United States Senate candidate here in Iowa, and I am joined again by my friends and colleagues. I got Dr. Bob Leonard, who is a retired radio journalist with bylines in the New York Times, Time, USA Today, and many more publications. He writes at Deep Midwest Politics and Culture on Substack. Dr. Bob Leonard, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming, Ryan.
And my best friend, once again, Spencer Dirks. He's the co-host of KHOI's Capital Week with Laura Bellin and producer of Iowa Down Ballot with Dave Price on Substack. Spencer Dirks, say a howdy doody.
I know you're my friend, but thanks for having me back. I enjoyed the last time. I'm excited for today's show, and also thanks to Ryan for coming on.
Yes, we are joined alongside the candidate for Iowa Secretary of State, a former U.S. Navy pilot and veteran. I spent a lot of time with him on the campaign trail. Ryan Peterman, say hello.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Nathan, Bob, Spencer, thanks so much for having me on. Really, really happy to be here today with everybody. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're happy to have Ryan on. One thing I wanted to say, when I talk about Ryan, Ryan and me have met. I believe, Ryan, I think you actually originally called me when I first launched, and I think you were going to launch, and we had a phone conversation, and then we had many conversations across the campaign trail. Being a statewide race, we saw each other everywhere. And if people don't know, I'm going to put this out there. My financial director, Laura, is dating his campaign director, Sam. So we kind of always gave them crap and had a good time. But Ryan was one of those guys. So when I talk, we've had Jennifer Converse on, we've had Josh Turek on, we've had Lindsey James on. Now we have Ryan on. It's like I'm circling back with my friends on the campaign trail, the people that I knew in the room that I could go to and just have a general good conversation with. Just about, it could be about politics, but it could be just about life and about anything. And Ryan was one of those guys, and I give him crap because I've seen pictures of him with an amazing Tom Selleck mustache, and he doesn't have it right now. And I'm hoping to God that if he wins and becomes our next Secretary of State, Ryan will grow that mustache out. So Ryan, that's the first question I have for you. Will you indeed grow that mustache out if you win as Iowa Secretary of State?
You know what, Nathan? I can make that promise to you today. If I win, I'll bring the mustache back. I don't know how long it'll stick around, but happy to do that for you.
There we go.
I will say, you're not the only one that brings that up almost every time. They say there's a handful of other folks that are really pushing hard to make it happen. So.
Well, when you see that picture, Ryan, with you on your website or whatever, where you're standing in your flight suit and you got the mustache going and the sun's glaring, you got the sunglasses on, it's like, dude, you're right out of Top Gun. That's like you gotta go with that look.
All right. If I win, it's coming back. Yeah.
That's a hell of a pitch. Vote for me. The stash is back, baby.
Right?
I mean, the timing would be good in November too. A little no shave. Or mow back.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, right. So not only are we pitching for you to bring the Tom Selleck mustache back, but we're also helping you try to become our next Secretary of State. So let's talk about that now, right? Let's talk about Secretary of State. We've seen across this country, especially recently, well, in the past 5-6 years, with the Trump administration calling everybody a liar and saying that the election was a fraud and all of this integrity with our elections. Like I never ever thought of that stuff, really had that in the mind frame until this all came forward because he's a sore loser. So now here in Iowa, people are worried about it. I know on the campaign trail, I've seen you speak, and I know you've gotten a lot of questions about things. But talk about yourself, where you come from, why you're doing what you're doing, and why it isn't so important for people like you who believe in integrity and honesty to be our Secretary of State here in Iowa.
Yeah, I guess I'll just start with telling you a bit about myself, and feel free to jump in with any questions or cut me off if I'm getting a little long-winded. But I grew up here in the Quad Cities. I'm calling in from Davenport now, and grew up about 2 miles from here, just over in Bettendorf. And my family was full of teachers. My mom, my grandmother, sister, cousins, really too many to count. And that was, I think, influential on my upbringing. Uh, I had some veterans in the family too. My dad and my grandfather on my mom's side. He served in the Navy in World War II and the Army during the Korean War. And my dad served in the Army before I was born. And so their influence, plus the influence of my own teachers and my coaches, I had some great coaches growing up that were veterans as well. I just realized that public service was an important part of my life, or I wanted it to be anyways. And I think the influence of, the veterans in my life made me realize I wanted to join the military. Decided I wanted to join the Navy. I wanted to be a Navy pilot. I really looked up to Tom Harkin and to John McCain and some other Navy pilots growing up. And when I was in high school, I had a friend who was a few years ahead of me. When I was a freshman, he was a senior. He went to the Air Force Academy, and that's kind of the first thing that really opened my eyes to service academy is like being an option for something you can do. And I decided, I want to be a Navy pilot, and I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. And fast forward a few years, I was fortunate enough to get into the Naval Academy. So I went out to Annapolis and, met tons of wonderful people from all over the country. Folks that are still my best friends to this day, folks I went to school with and served with, and was fortunate again because I did end up getting my first choice of service assignment after graduation. I went down to flight school and became a Navy pilot, earned my wings of gold, and spent a few years out in San Diego flying helicopters. I had a chance to deploy while I was out there. Spent a little bit of time in the Pacific, but spent the brunt of that deployment in the Middle East, Persian Gulf, Arabian Sea, transits through the Strait of Hormuz, good flying, but really great people. And, it's one of those things like while you're over there, you just want to get home. But looking back, like you realize that was, all in all, a good experience. Just a really unique opportunity, formed really close relationships with so many of the people I flew with and served with. I led a division of about 30 sailors, and these were like the most junior sailors in the squadron, guys and gals that were either straight out of boot camp or maybe straight out of their first, we can call it a school, but like a trade school where they're learning the job they're going to do to maintain the helicopters we flew. So I learned a ton about good leadership, about taking care of people in that role, and flying was cool. We, flew into Kuwait a few times. I picked up a broken helicopter in Bahrain, and we got it back to the carrier. And just overall, in hindsight, a great experience, and I'm grateful for now, absolutely. But I got back from that deployment, and I was at the point in my career where most of my peers went on to instructor pilot jobs, which would have been great, rewarding, fulfilling, probably a lot of fun too. But I found out about a fellowship program that the Department of Defense runs. It sounded neat, sounded cool, sounded like an opportunity where I could learn something new. So I applied for that and was fortunate again, got accepted. So the Navy shipped me out to DC, and I spent a year in DC as a legislative fellow, working for Senator Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire. And an eye-opening experience, absolutely, to kind of see how Capitol Hill works. It was a new perspective on the federal government. I touched on a lot of issue areas that I just never overlapped with as a fleet helicopter pilot. Things like shipbuilding programs, some environmental programs. Like the time the Navy was looking for a replacement to AFFF, aqueous film forming foam, which is like a firefighting suppressant we use in hangars a lot of times.
P19s.
Unfortunately, it leaches off a lot of PFAS, right? And we realize it's had negative impacts on the communities and the service members that come into contact with it. So it was cool working on stuff like that. Worked on a little bit the Ukraine Security Initiative. Obviously, that was like post Crimea, but pre most recent invasion. So just a really eye-opening experience, and I was really encouraged to see like there are folks in Cap or working on the Hill, elected officials and their staffs that really do care. They care about doing a good job. They care about making a difference. And that was just very encouraging. And it's something I think influenced my decision to run for office myself, saying like, we don't have to like settle for folks that are in office to not get the job done. I feel like I probably am getting a little long-winded on my story now, but
no, you know what's funny? You know what's funny, Ryan? What always makes me laugh in my head every single time I'm around you, and every time I listen to you, is you are. You're probably gonna blush, but you're you're a cool dude, man. Like you've done some cool shit. Like
Thanks, man.
we're sitting here listening to you.
No,
And
like, yeah,
I
keep
know
going,
Spencer.
dude.
Yeah, I know Spencer's just like, dude, talk about it more. Like the cool stuff you got to do. You're so humble about it, and that's why I've called you and told you that I've said that you are a true Iowan. You are very kind, open doors for people, very humble about yourself. You're not, and that's what I'm almost giving myself goosebumps. You're not in this for self-stardom. You're not in this to be something bigger or what better. You are like, hey, you see a problem, you see an office that you feel like you can address the problem, especially here in Iowa, especially with our elections, especially with the integrity of our elections, and you just are I like to say that like you're just fit for that role because you just don't you're not this guy that's making yourself sound like you're not gloating about the things you did. You're just talking about how you went through that. And I'm sitting here going like, dude, like how cool is it that we're talking to a Navy pilot for one? You know what I mean? Like those are cool things that I think that you just in your life have gotten used to, that when you talk, a lot of people are just kind of caught off guard by. And I make fun of the Navy. I joke about different branches of the military, but you are the most humble, self just reserved person that I've met when it comes to running for office. And I think that's why I like you so much, because again, like so many times working class individuals, so many times across the state, across this country, we have people that are running for office because they want that next notch on their belt, their next point in their career. And I think we need more people like yourself, Ryan, that are running because you see a problem, running because you have experience in your life that dictates that you can help make the changes, or help fix the problems that we have at the state level, especially in the Secretary of State. I might be blown out, but is that a good way of of kind of bringing that all together and saying, yeah, that's the reason why you're here and doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of hits the nail on the head. It's something I think needs to be addressed, and I think I have an opportunity and a way to address it. But I just, the other stuff you're saying, like I consider myself very lucky, really, to have
Yeah.
done everything I've done in the Navy. I know a lot of these experiences are unique, and I'd agree they're kind of cool, but like,
You just got,
I think
yeah.
a lot of that is
They're
like
kind of
obviously there was
cool.
work involved to get there. Like I set some goals, but like there are great people that have tried to do some of these things that like for no fault of their own didn't get the opportunity to do that. And I feel very grateful that I did get some of these opportunities.
The other thing I really love about you, Ryan, is every time I've heard you speak, you talk about leadership. That stands out to me because I feel like being in the military, this as well. Like there, when you're in the military, that in my opinion is the best time a chance for people to see really good leadership and piss poor leadership.
Yeah.
And so you learn you see the spectrum of where you want to be on that, and how you want to treat people, and how you want to be. And one thing that stands out to me as well is being in radio, the way you talk, you can tell. It's almost like, I think, a kind of like a Barack Obama, where you're slowly taking your time to make sure the words that you're saying are the words that you want to say. And you're not like me, just cussing and throwing it up, off the cuff. You are well thought out. So those are the things that stand out to me. Dr. Bob Leonard, I know you're just aching to get a question in, so we'll go to you, Dr. Bob.
Well, I think this is a very interesting race. I mean, Paul Pate's held this position, for a long time. I've watched him for a long time. I've watched his staff in action. I've heard him speak a number of times. My immediate thoughts as you were talking are, I've always been very impressed with his staff. I'm just going to say that. I think that they're
Yeah.
highly competent. And I've seen them in challenges to ballots. I've seen them helping him assist when he didn't know an answer to a question. They were able to tell us what the process was. But I'm wondering if there's something that can be done to streamline some of the processes. It's like we've had ballot challenges and nomination paper challenges, and there hasn't been a lot of time to work with it. I see how his staff works back and forth from the documents trying to prove signatures. And it seems like, from what I'm just sort of being sort of vague about it, but it seems that there might be a good time with you coming in as the new Secretary of State to review the processes, especially in the times in these times when Republicans are always going to tell us lies about voter integrity.
Yeah, I think you bring up a couple of good points. And the first thing I just want to echo, I think I share your sentiment that I have an immense amount of respect for career civil servants. And I know they are everywhere throughout our government that do phenomenal work and have done so for a long time. So I have respect for the staff in the Secretary of State's office, absolutely. But I think you're also right that this would be a good time to undergo a review of our processes and see where we can be doing better. And I think that goes for the processes we use to get on the ballot, the processes we use to address challenges, anything election related, but it also goes to, it applies to all the other functions of the Secretary of State's office as well. I think we need to review side of things, but also the business services side of things to make sure that the Secretary of State and the office of the Secretary of State is providing the best, most efficient services we can, no matter what people are coming to the office to do. So I think that's something that it is something I intend to review to just make sure that we're providing really the best customer service we can, a transparent process, no matter what that process happens to be when you come to the Secretary of State for a question or to get a service from the government.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ryan,
Spencer
first of all,
Jerks.
thanks for coming on. Thank you so much for your service.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It really does mean a lot for you to be on the show. You kind of just mentioned it. It's not just elections. I'm kind of politically tuned in. I don't exactly know what the Secretary of State does on a day-to-day basis. Can you kind of tell us what the job is that you're applying for?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll admit, in my view, the most important role of the Secretary of State is election administration. To me, that is really the core, the foundation of democracy. It's how we make our voice heard. It's how we choose our leaders. It's how we hold them accountable. So to me, that's the most important responsibility of the Secretary of State. But you're right, it's not the only one. And the other big one is the business services side of things. If you want to start or run a business here in Iowa, all that paperwork is processed through the Secretary of State's office. I think here in Iowa, we do things better than some states, but there are also other states that do things better than we do. And I want to make sure, and again, I really do think the best way to summarize this, it comes down to customer service. We need to make sure, like, if you have a question about something, you can get an answer in a timely manner, whether that's online or on the phone. We need to make sure that the websites you use, if you want to use the internet to register or do your annual filing for business, are user friendly, easy for folks to use, easy for folks to get answers to questions. I think we can be doing better in that regard because, I think about small business owners here in Iowa, that's my parents, family members, friends I have. Like, there are a million different things that you need to consider when you're starting or running a small business. One of your major concerns shouldn't be the paperwork you have to file with the state government. That shouldn't be mountains of red tape. And I'm not saying it's that bad now, but if we can make it easier, more streamlined, more efficient, we should be doing that. And I think we should look at some states that are doing the best, make sure we're doing it the best here in Iowa and providing the best service we can to small business owners across the state. And unfortunately, in recent years, Iowa has been the state where the fewest number of businesses have opened. I don't think this is the only reason that's the case, but if we can make it easier for folks, we should be doing that.
Ryan, one thing that I love about you is I know that you're not. I know you're a Democrat, obviously, but you're not. You're in here because you want to serve people, and I feel like across this state recently, especially over the past 10 years, we've seen these offices that are supposed to be bipartisan turn partisan, turn one way or another, or lean and make it harder on each side for sometimes what I believe is just petty reasons. But I want you to talk specifically. You got a chance to talk to a wide variety of people that are listening to this about how you are going to be somebody that's Secretary of State for everybody, not just Democrats. Talk about a little bit about that and what your thoughts are in regards to making sure that office stays in that bipartisan effort, if you will.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, and something I feel very strongly about. I spent, as a naval officer, you are required by law to be a nonpartisan. I've spent my entire life, up until this point, as a nonpartisan when it comes to the execution of the duties of the roles I've held. And I think we need that mentality. We need that approach in the Secretary of State's office. Obviously, I'm a Democrat. I think we have the ideas that will take Iowa and the country in a much better direction. But more importantly, I think the label that I feel is more important to me is an Iowan, and as Secretary of State, like I will work with anyone that has a good idea, but more importantly, I will not approach the office in a way that's designed to shape elections in a way that achieves my desired outcome. I think we need a commitment to be nonpartisan, particularly when it comes to election administration. The job isn't to pick winners and losers. It's not to shape elections in a way that helps us out. It's really just to make sure every single Iowan that has the right to vote has the opportunity to vote, and that it's not a burdensome or cumbersome process, that we're not throwing up hurdles or roadblocks in the way of that. And that needs to be the number one job. And I really don't think that is partisan. It shouldn't be. And I think for years and years, for the most part, secretaries of state across the country have executed their duties in that way. Unfortunately, in recent history, we've started to get away from that. And you see that in so much of the rhetoric we hear around elections now, the disinformation, which is unfortunate. But I think for the long-term sake of our state and our country, we need to get back to nonpartisan execution of elections.
Yeah,
Well, Paul
I
Pate said-
I was going to jump in there really quick, Dr. Bob, before you got to it. I know I'm going to lead you in with a question, but I was going to say is the thing that I think is interesting that you touched on just a minute there is a lot of people don't know what these offices do across the country until this administration put a flashlight and said, look at what's going on, or because he couldn't deal with losing, he had to try to point at different directions. So I think a lot of people across the country are kind of going, I didn't even know what these offices did. I didn't know what these people did. And so now it's bringing that audience a little bit bigger and a little bit wider, especially every office across the state seems to be under a microscope at times. But Dr. Bob, get to what you're saying.
Well, I just want to say that isn't the vision Paul Pate has. His allegiance, first and foremost, is to Donald Trump, not the people of Iowa. And we can see that in many of his action, from restricting access to voting to pulling, 2,000 people, identifying them, trying to make it difficult or not allow them to vote, handing over the voter rolls of vote. The elections are supposed to be handled by the states. And when Donald Trump asked, he just got all of our personal information. Paul Pate turned it over immediately. I think there's 20 or 30 other states that aren't doing that. And when Trump demanded it, Paul Pate bent the knee.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's been 30 states that have pushed back, both with Republican and Democrat secretaries of state. And I think now, as of yesterday, 15 of those cases have been adjudicated, or actually all 15 of them were thrown out. The Department of Justice has lost all 15 of the cases that have been decided so far. And I think you're spot on as well. Like he handed over our personal information to the Department of Justice. He told us that he was required to do so, but each of these cases has showed us that he was not required to do so. And you've made a comment about that showing us who Paul Pate works for. And I think it is clear. Paul Pate is working for his party bosses in DC. He's not working for Iowans. And I think in Iowa, we need a Secretary of State. Really, all of our elected officials need to know that their boss is the people of Iowa. It's not, their party bosses. We need folks that are serious and committed to working for Iowans. And I know I said before, but really to making life better for folks here in Iowa. And I think, democracy, the ballot box, that's how we make our voice heard in that process. But when we have folks in office that aren't getting the job done, aren't solving problems, aren't making life better for us, it's our job to vote them out of there. And unfortunately, a lot of the actions we've seen happen here in Iowa when it comes to election administration have made it harder for folks to do that.
Ryan, we can talk a lot about, the office and bipartisanship and all of that. But one thing that I just like to do and I want to do with you is just know the man behind the man, right? I want to know who you are and what you're about. So I need to know, these are my things. Favorite sports team, favorite hobby that you like to do outside of doing political stuff, and what are your, I'd say, what's your favorite food? Just give us random things that people need to know about you.
These are good questions. Sports team, I mean, I got to go with my alma mater here, I think, the Naval Academy.
Yeah.
But I'm my sister went to Iowa State growing up. So as a kid, I watched a lot of Iowa State games. I went out to the Naval Academy. My sponsor family, they had the Big Ten Network, so I was able to watch every single Iowa game on the Saturdays when I wasn't at a Navy game. And I think that was like a connection to home for me that ended up being pretty impactful. So now I watch mostly Iowa sports. I'll watch Iowa State games too. I mean, I'll cheer for both teams, but yeah, I consider myself an Iowa fan, absolutely. I just something just
Hobby.
thought of something else I was going to say. I just lost it, but
Yeah. I assume that since you're in Davenport and Bettendorf, you're probably like a Bears fan.
yeah, Chicago sports fan. Yeah, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, and Cubs. Yeah.
Okay. I was hoping you would have said White Sox because he could have given the middle finger to Spencer. He's a Twins fan, so that's what I was
No, that
hoping
would have been
for.
awful. I would have been
Yeah.
hopped off this call. It would have been over.
Those are my sports teams, and I always like I don't know how often any of you guys get out to Davenport, but we've got a great minor league ballpark here. Want to go check a River Bandits game? It's a great experience. I think it's consistently rated like the #1 minor league ballpark in the country for good reason. It's right on the river. Just looks nice.
Yeah.
It's a fun time. Games are cheap. Like it's fun.
Do you still fly?
No, I not really. I mean, I technically have a license from the FAA, but I like flying. It's fun, but it's one of those things where, like, for me to feel comfortable taking people up flying, like, I would need to do it very regularly. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel proficient enough to do it safely, right? And it's expensive, takes a lot of time to keep up with. So hopefully, at some point in my life, I can get to a point where I can get out flying, but I don't think that's really.
Do you understand, Ryan, how awesome the 99 county tour would have been if me and you could have just flown to every county instead of having to drive through everything?
We would have saved a lot of time, but probably would have spent a lot of money. And yeah. And then you're at the mercy of weather a lot more too. So I mean, we might have been stuck anywhere.
Yeah. Well, tell you
Nathan,
what's your hot.
Can I
Yeah,
can
get
I
on there,
ask
Spencer.
my last question? So I want to get the Navy pilot stuff because that's the cool stuff. What's your favorite? So when you like lie down and lay down in bed, a lot of people like think of great moments in their life just to make themselves feel better. Like, what is a moment from your Navy experience that you're like, that's the best freaking thing?
I'll give you a couple. One, this was really cool because it was unexpected, but I spent half my deployment on a destroyer, or part of the deployment on a destroyer, and then the other part on the carrier itself. And when we were on the carrier, we flew into Kuwait to do like some training missions out there. There were a handful of Air Force forward air controllers that we wanted to do some training with, and there was one Marine guy that was FAC qualified because we had a Marine Hornet squadron on board. So we brought the Marine FAC out, met up with some Air Force FACs, but we landed at this airfield in Kuwait, and it was the first time we were there. So like, we had a couple people sit in the helicopters, just kept them spinning, so we didn't want to like shut them down and risk having some problem on startup. And we let everyone else go walk around. So we're walking around these buildings, and like I turn the corner and see this Iowa flag up on a flagpole. And I just thought that was like the coolest thing. So I finally found a building with some people and I started talking to them, and there were some soldiers out there from an Iowa Guard unit. And I just thought this awesome like little piece of home, about as far away from home as you can get. And I had someone take a picture of me, like on my helicopter helmet. I have like the Tiger Hawk. It looks like an Iowa football helmet. So I held that in my hand and like took a picture of the Iowa flag, but I have no idea what happened to that picture. And I hope it's not gone forever. But I've been looking for it for a while and I haven't found it yet. So that was absolutely one of the coolest moments, just because it was so unexpected. Like, you're thousands of miles away from home, and then you look up and wow, there's an Iowa flag there. Like that was super cool to me. I'll never forget that. But one of my coolest flights, I think, was there was a West Coast. So I flew the MH-60 Romeo. It's like one of the Navy's variants of the H-60, and we did a lot of, like, our primary missions were like anti-submarine warfare and anti-surface warfare. What that really meant was like we looked for ships and submarines, and we reported that information back about where they were and who they were to folks on the carrier or any ship that wanted to know that information. We had a West Coast Romeo squadron that was deployed on a carrier that was doing an around the world deployment with a home port shift from the West Coast to the East Coast. So they had been gone probably 10 months. When they were pulling back, when they got close enough to the East Coast, they could fly off. They all flew their helicopters off, but just wanted to get back to San Diego as soon as they could. So they flew commercial air back to San Diego. So we had to send some crews out there from other squadrons to go pick up their aircraft in Jacksonville, Florida. So I was one of, I think, the 5 or 6 crews we sent out there to do that. And we got out there, checked out the aircraft, spent the next 4 days flying them from Jacksonville, Florida back to San Diego, California, mostly around 500 feet. We stopped at this little airport we used to stop at in flight school that has like the best free pork burritos when you go get gas there. So we did that. Stopped in New Orleans overnight, stopped in Austin overnight, stopped in Albuquerque overnight. And it was like just some of the most beautiful flying. Like you really saw the whole country, at least the southern part from east to west. And, we had great crews out there with us. I had a ton of fun with those guys and just a very cool, awesome experience. Again, that I'll never forget. So those are probably like two of, like if you're asking for like a moment, two of the best moments that always come to mind for me. And outside of the moments, it really was just like the people I served with, just really awesome people that I'm great friends with still, from all over. That was cool.
Yeah, man, I feel like a little kid listening to your stories. And then you touched on, you said you dropped in Albuquerque. I know Dr. Bob, you may got any more questions. He's a former Albuquerque representative, basically. Dr. Bob, talk about Albuquerque and ask any more questions if you got them.
Well, it just, that was a captivating discussion. And I don't know if I should say this or not, but, my impression of you, we've spoken a couple of times before, but it's like, you're pretty darn close to Captain America. Let me just say that.
Seriously, I was going to say can I just say he's a true American hero? No doubt. He is what like Trump and the MAGA people put into Chat GPT to make themselves look like he's the guy that they're trying to be. Seriously.
I'm flattered, but I don't know.
See, that's why you're an American hero, is because we say all this and you're like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's perfect. Yes.
Like, dude, like Ryan, you're cool, man. This is really cool for us because it's like we don't get to talk about flying from Kuwait to whatever. Well, like that's cool as shit to me. So,
and then, and the most important point of coming out of that statement that I said is your trustworthiness. You aren't going to BS the public. You aren't going to BS the citizens of Iowa. You're going to tell it straight. That's the only thing that you can do, it seems to me. And that is just brings so much, you bring so much trust into the room. You make it, everyone in it, better. So nice. I think that's pretty cool. And that's why people should vote for you. How can we help you?
Well, that's a good question. But first, you just brought up something that reminded me of something. And I don't think I got to, but my last job in the Navy was back at the Naval Academy. And I did a couple jobs there, but my main one was I worked in the honor office, which was really the office tasked with making sure midshipmen were educated about the importance of honor and integrity in their careers. Part of that was educational, part of that was disciplinary. But I really enjoyed trying to relate to midshipmen, like why this stuff is so important in your career as a Navy or Marine Corps officer. And I think the values of honor and integrity are every bit as important for folks seeking elected office. As a helicopter pilot, it's straightforward. I just relayed my experiences to the midshipmen about why it matters in the fleet. Like you have to be able to trust your crew. Like you rely on them, and quite literally, your life is in the hands of the people you're flying with. And if they can't trust you, like things aren't going to go well. Like you're not going to be able to do the things you need to do to accomplish the missions and to get home safely. And I think you need that same kind of integrity, that same level of trust as an elected official between, the person in office and their constituents. People need to know that when you tell them something, you're telling them the truth. Like if not, it all falls apart, and we start to see how the disinformation and rhetoric can enter the equation, and it can further breaks down trust, and it leads to a lot of the divisiveness we're seeing now. So I'm happy for that experience I had just trying to communicate to midshipmen why it's so important that we serve with honor and integrity. And, that I think that's a core part of who I am. And I think we need a lot more of that from our elected officials too. And Dr. Bob, I know I jumped off on something that was not your question, but your question was how can you help me? Huh? What I tell everybody is I'm a first time candidate. I have some people here in Davenport and the Quad Cities that know who I am. Few people across the state, more now, absolutely, than when I first launched. But I just always ask people for help spreading the word. Talking about the importance of protecting democracy, talking about the importance of having someone that's going to lead and serve with that nonpartisan commitment in that office, and talking to people about there being better options to have folks in office in any office really across Iowa. So, if anybody listening gets a chance, you like what you've heard today, please tell folks about my story. Tell folks that you think there's a guy out there trying to do some good for our state. And if, folks listening want to check out my website, it's peterman4iowa.com. I don't know if you can put that link anywhere, Nathan.
We will. We'll put the link in there.
I ask for is just help spreading the word. I'm greatly appreciative of that.
Absolutely, Ryan. I appreciate you so much coming on. When you're talking, I've spoken with you, so I know how you talk. I know how you are, and I always really appreciated when you would give your speech and you would talk about leadership and understanding leadership. And when you speak, I think Dr. Bob and Spencer both saw what I saw in you and see what so many people see in you is that trustworthiness, that actual real person, that Iowan that I said you are. You are like Dr. Bob might call you Captain America. And at the end of the day, you're Captain Iowa is the way I look at it. You are the epitome of what Iowans need in office, and I appreciate you so much. Willing to come on and chat with us. I know we'll see each other more down the road. We'll probably have you on again sometime too. Especially maybe we'll have you on when the Army Navy game comes on or something. We can joke about that. But
yeah.
But I appreciate you so much. Yeah, Dr. Bob and Spencer, you got anything else you want to ask before we say goodbye to Ryan?
I mean, tons, but
yeah,
I've got time.
Well, we have other stuff to talk about. Yeah, Dr. Bob.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we've with this interview, we put together a very nice package that people can learn more about you from. And so I don't want to, make it too long by asking more questions.
That's fair.
I mean, you're welcome to hang on. We're three loose cannons that are going to go talk about other matters in the world. You're welcome to stay and sort of steady the ship if you want.
No, I think I'll leave that to you guys, but do hope for the chance to get back on at some point. This has been a wonderful way to spend the morning, and just want to say thanks again for having me on, and look forward to seeing everybody both here in this Zoom call and back out on the campaign trail too. Nathan, it's been a while, man. I'll find an event down your way. We can meet up.
Yeah, last time I saw you was in Osceola. Like I rode my motorcycle down and hung out with you. It was a nice time. Good people down there. But yeah, definitely. If I got to get back out and see him. Dr. Bob will see him down the road. Spencer, you will too. But Ryan, again, appreciate you so much. Even though you're in the Navy and I was in the Marine Corps. Still love you. Still appreciate you.
Along those lines, like I got trained by about as many Marines as I did by Navy folks at the Naval Academy. So I've got a, soft spot for the Marine Corps.
I always look at the Navy. They saved our lives and they took us where we needed to go. Right. Like we had corpsmen with us. I met some really cool people in the Navy and I appreciate them so much, but I appreciate you again jumping on. We're going to get back to our Sage Against the Machine podcast. Ryan Peterman, candidate for Secretary of State. Thank you again.
Thanks again, guys. Have a great day.
Too.
See you, Ryan.
And shows his intelligence by saying, nope, you guys got that. I'm the hell out of here. I did great.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate Ryan coming on. We'll move right along here on the Sage Against the Machine podcast. We got to get to our headlines and headlines that matter. And I want to start out before we get these headlines. Dr. Bob, you and I talked about this a couple episodes ago about it's summertime, and we know that this is the time when things start to ramp up, when ICE gets out there and decides to start creating chaos and putting fear in people's lives. So I'll start off with the first one is an ICE enforcement operation in Bidford, Maine, ended with an officer fatally shooting a Colombian man. Federal officers say the suspect attempted to flee, while advocates and witnesses have questioned the circumstances. The incident has intensified debate over immigration enforcement, transparency, and accountability. One thing that I wanted to say before we get to it is that the brief that I had on there doesn't tell you that the person that was shot was here legally. They had the papers. They didn't have a weapon on them, and yeah, there is other people on the other side that are saying that he didn't flee and he was doing everything right. And I wanted to put this on here because, again, we talked about it before about this continued chaos when it comes to the summertime, and we see this ICE enforcement, and we're going to talk about some other headlines that have to do with that as well, especially specifically here in Iowa. But the thing that just drives me nuts, like, is you go on social media, all of you guys see it. You see the other side. You see people making their stupid comments. You see people just saying stupid shit out loud. And the thing that drives me the most nuts is like the one where they say, well, if they would be here legally, they wouldn't have any problems. If they would just do as they're told, they wouldn't have any problems. And I just want people to understand, it's easy to sit behind a keyboard. It's easy to do what we're doing and talking like this. It's not very easy when you are somebody who's in a situation like this person was in, who has literally seen what they've seen on TV, seen what they've seen in our public, seen the comments that you're putting out there, and understand that people have died, people have been killed, people have been arrested, people have been torn away from their families, people have gone through tragic moments. To sit there and go, yeah, I'm just going to sit here and accept what's happening. Like, you have a fight or flight mentality, and to think that people are always going to be calm under pressure and just not fall into their fear is insanely fucking stupid to me. And that's why I wanted to put this on here, because I'm so tired of hearing that rhetoric. And I know we can talk about that all day, but what are your guys' thoughts on what happened in Maine? What are your guys' thoughts with the continued terrorization of our country when it comes to ICE?
Go ahead,
Anyone?
Spencer, you start.
Just terrifying that there probably will be no consequences. We've seen investigations start in some of the other shootings that we've seen in Minnesota and other parts of the country, but it's basically, I mean, this is the whole point. They want ICE to go in and terrorize the neighborhoods. They like the headlines where people get shot. That's the whole point. They're throwing a match on gasoline. And they're the ones that also poured the gasoline, by the way. So they're doing what they said they were going to do. And we knew that it was going to lead to deaths and violence. They never advertised that or said that that was the point, but even their supporters were hoping that, I mean, you mentioned it. Most of the comments you see, I mean, obviously online is not real world, but most of the comments you see from the right are positive when you see somebody being shot in the street, and this is a citizen of the US. And I also believe that, and you said no weapon, I also believe they had no criminal record.
Mm-mm.
It was just somebody going about their life in the United States, and they were shot to death by their own government.
This was all absolutely predictable. I wrote a piece for the Gazette and for Deep Midwest when Trump first started talking about mass deportations. And so I wrote, sort of a plan, worst case scenario, and the title of the article was Document the Atrocities, that there were going to be atrocities, and we've seen them. And this was one of them. There have been two of them recently where people that were here legally with work permits, minding their own business, have been shot and killed. And it's a statistical phenomenon. The more police you put on the street, the greater the potential for negative interactions. And it's a probability kind of thing. And especially when they're untrained, when they aren't, technically many of them aren't allowed to arrest anybody, detain anybody, but they do so anyway. And they're in masks, and, some of them are probably Proud Boys and other kinds of real the people behind the masks. Some of them are worse than the worst criminals, most of which have been, from other lands have been deported. They're after just regular people now. And so
Correct. I
there's
mean,
going
real quick, like a guy like Ryan Peterman, he's not going to apply for a job with ICE. Imagine the kind of people that apply for that job. So
well,
just to go out, I mean, so of course there's Proud Boys and it's full of racist people. How could it not be?
yeah, I'm sure it is. And so they want this. They want people to be afraid. They don't mind the killings. It's just like Randy Feenstra. I heard him say to an audience in Oskaloosa that the killings of Good and Preddy in Minneapolis were incidental. They're incidental is what he called them. And so they don't care. Stephen Miller doesn't care. Donald Trump doesn't care. That's why they're dehumanizing people, is so that the general public, if whatever Trump calls them, they're eating the cats and dogs, they're vermin. That's all part of demonization, dehumanizing them. So it's easy for most people to accept when these kinds of things happen. Except most Americans don't want it to happen to their neighbors and friends that are in the country legally. They just don't want it to happen, but it's happening. But they look the other way because of Trump's rhetoric. And I heard something very interesting today. Sarah Longwell has a podcast, and she interviews focus groups. And she had a focus group a couple of nights after. She's a political consultant. She had a focus group, a couple of nights after these shootings, and these were all with undecided voters, and not one of the people had heard about them. So the word isn't getting out. The MAGA media isn't going to get it out, and most of the MAGA people aren't watching, legacy media. So this is purposeful. They want us afraid. They want people to self-deport. But there's also an argument that they really aren't doing a very good job of it, in the sense that they have to scare everybody, but we need the workers. And so they're just constantly stirring the pot without anything but negative outcomes. So I don't know. It's very complex, but this is all totally, completely calculated. It's what they want. They expect the deaths as inevitable, and they're okay with that.
Just to localize that real quick, you mentioned that they're, obviously making arrests and trying to make people self-deport. We just saw 3 people arrested by ICE at a data center in Cedar Rapids. So again, you mentioned we need the workers. That's 3 people that they really would probably like to have on the job site today. Not that we are, rooting for data centers by any means, but I mean, that's just, we need workers, especially in the state of Iowa, by the way.
Well, since Spencer brought it up, we'll get right to that headline as well. That's the Iowa headline that I had, was the viral Cedar Rapids arrest. A viral video showing a woman being forcefully arrested during a protest in Cedar Rapids has sparked widespread criticism and calls for greater police accountability. Release of the additional body cam footage and release of additional body cam footage and an independent review is underway. I know the Cedar Rapids Police Department is under reviewing their tactics as how to handle that situation. I saw the video. I thought it was interesting. One thing I wanted to say about it and about both of these scenarios and these situations is one is they're different than the other, because one is ICE agents and the other is Cedar Rapids police. And I think that, with ICE, you can understand, like Dr. Bob said, they're not supposed to be arresting people. They're not supposed to do a lot of the things they're doing. They're doing their tactics specifically to terrorize people. Police on the other side of things, especially in Cedar Rapids and in here in Iowa, I know there are bad apples out there. We know that. We've seen that across the board that give police a bad name, and this is one of those examples of a moment in time that is going to give police a bad name. Because when I watched the video, and what I saw with my own 2 eyes was a woman in a dress standing there saying, "Why are you detaining me?" or "Why are you arresting me?" or was trying to ask them. And then the cop come up behind, slam her to the ground, and then they arrest her after that. And so my biggest takeaway from all of this is if we're going to pour money into ICE and if we're going to pour money into our police departments, let's pour it into training. Let's pour it into vetting people that are, when it comes to why they're actually wanting to be ICE agents or why they're wanting to be police officers in the first place. I am not anti-police at all. I believe that we do need to be protected and served. I just think that there's people in the scenarios, like when I was talking to Ryan, like there's leadership in the military that is really, really good, and then there's really, really bad. And I feel like that is the same range when it comes to police officers in general as well. And I think that police officers, like we had to in the military, police officers have to do a better job of policing their own and not allowing people like that. And someone in the scenario we saw on CD, there was three. I saw three police officers, 2 on the ground and 1 standing up in that scenario. That someone needs to be able to take command of the situation to understand this and what we're doing right now and what is happening is not okay. And the woman, people can debate about why she was there, should she have been arrested, whatever. I agree with they can debate about that, but the manner in which she was arrested, the manner in which this guy from in Maine was shot, like I feel like for some reason in the past 10 years we've been more like the wild west than we have been in a civilized society that shouldn't be acting the way we're acting, and we are in America, and it just seems like we've sat here and we've dehumanized people so much that it's been easy to pull a trigger, it's been easy to slam a person, it's been easy because we have one side that rallies it and gets all excited about it, almost like this. They live vicariously through TV and through social media, and they love the bloodlust, and they love you teach them, that's what we should be doing. And then the other side of the aisle is going, we're human fucking beings, man. Like, you gotta stop killing us. And I don't know what the necessary fix is, but I just know it got to stop. And I hope that we can find a way to make it where officers are better trained, vetted better, especially psychologically, to make sure they're not there just to be, the assholes that they want to be because someone bullied them in school, and they actually are there because they want to protect and serve their communities. And that is what bothers me about both of these instances. I believe I know that in this video circumstance, these people who are out there, they all had their phones recording. I think people. I have a GoPro camera. I thought I had it next to me for a second. Here it is, right here. I have a little GoPro that I use. I think people should make sure you have one. Go out there and make sure you're filming, because you need to make sure that your side is told. If they're going to try to make the narrative one way, you need to make sure that your side is told through video and through recording. But I'm more sad than I am angry and outraged, because I care for people. I love people. I don't want to see one thing that sticks out to me, and this is my military being in Iraq, is I remember being in Iraq and going to an ECP at the back gate of Taqadum, and these kids would always come up to us and through the fence, through concertina wire, stick their little arms through the concertina wire because they wanted us to give them food or give them an MRE or something because they were hungry or whatever. And it's like, we're getting blown up every day. We're getting attacked every day. And you can still recognize humanity. You can still understand that these kids don't have it the way that we have it in America. And we give them the things they need. And I wish more and more officers would just take a moment to not always assess everything as a horrible threat, but also as a human being as well. And I know that's a hard and very fine line. I understand the argument there, but I'm just so fucking tired of watching innocents killed, especially in America. You guys, any thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things I want to say is that the situation in Maine, they were untrained. They're untrained on purpose. They don't want them trained. They want the people hurt and dead. That's what Stephen Miller wants. That's what Trump wants. And so they have them fearful. And they're not trained enough. They didn't even treat it as a crime scene. They drug that poor man. He was dead. They drug him out onto the concrete and then cuffed him. And he was dead. And I understand his daughter was there, 3 years old or so. So this is the kind of, and then they didn't treat it as a crime scene. The street sweeper went by. There was blood, and people put on chalk, this is blood. And this wasn't an error. This wasn't a one-off. This is what they want. Make no mistake. And it makes our regular police officers who are good look bad. Okay?
I was gonna
Even
say,
if
yeah, bad apples
and
spoil the bunch. People always say bad apples. Bad apples spoil the bunch.
well, and they don't want the training. And what's interesting is that we passed a law just this session where police departments don't have to introduce, bias training, how to interact with other cultures. They used to have to do that. They don't have to do that anymore. So what do they want? Less training. So what are you going to get when you don't offer that kind of training? More violent interactions because of cross-cultural communication problems. They want it. Kim Reynolds wants it too. Iowa Republican legislators want that too. They don't want our people to be trained, just like they don't want us to have water monitors. There's just all kinds of things that the Republicans are doing that make no sense to us, but there's a plan, a disruptive plan to pull down America as we know it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's insane that we have we have people in government that want small government, but we want to pour billions and billions of dollars into an untrained police force to terrorize Americans and people just trying to live their life. I think it's utterly sick and insane. And I'm going to tell you this, and I said it before, it's going to keep going. This is summertime. People are out having a good time. People are out interacting with other people. The Karens of the world, the shitheads of the world that are going to keep causing problems because they see somebody that's brown and reporting it to police and all this other crap. Like, that is what I've been worried about. And so what I would say to everybody again is make sure that you're filming, make sure you're documenting, and if you are in a scenario where you are legal or even not legal and you are, just wanting to live your life, make sure you have all your papers on you at all times. Make sure you are documented. Make sure you have the things that you need to give you the best chance to not be shot in the face. And that is crazy that we have to think about it that way, but that is the only thing I could think of. And I know it's fearful. Try to do your best in possibility. And that's the thing that brings me back to this girl in Cedar Rapids is she was there and she's been doing this for years of trying to defend people and trying to help people. And that's the purpose of them being there in the first place, was they were trying to help people that were being detained and people that were potentially being investigated and sought after because they're brown or because they of their immigration status. And what have we seen with that? We've seen people who are like her, this woman in Cedar Rapids, putting themselves in those situations, and they've been shot and killed too. In Minneapolis, we saw it twice. So it's a very scary time because we don't have leaders in this country that value human dignity and human life. We have shitheads, is the lack of a better term I can think of. These people that care more about money in their pockets than they do about human integrity, human life, and it's sad and concerning. And I don't know what else to say about it because it just feels like we're just going to continue to beat this dead horse because it's going to continue to happen because we, for some reason, devalue people. Because like the one clip that stuck in my mind that I saw the other day was the people in Maine were at the area of this where this happened at, and they were protesting, and a guy came up to them just off the street and he was like, shouldn't have been here. He was illegal. It wouldn't have happened if they get here illegally, and you wouldn't have the problem. And the people explained to him in that interview, in that moment, that he was legal. He did have his rights, and he did all of this stuff. And you could see the man's expression change, and then he goes, "Then that's just sad," and he walked away. And it's like, yeah, it is sad, but just acknowledging that it's sad is not good enough. Like, we have to do more for people that are trying to protect their families. We have to be more outspoken. The problem is with that is when you put yourself out there and outspoken, you're putting yourself as a target, what we saw in Minneapolis. So I'm fearful of the world.
Atrocities.
Yeah. I'm fearful of the world.
We don't have to solve shit. I mean,
yeah,
there's nothing we can do about it, but we can talk about it. And yeah. But
yeah.
I mean, it sucks, and it's going to suck for 3 more years, period.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll move right along. The last headline that I wanted to get to before I start my ranting cuss was about Todd Blanche and the DOJ. Todd Blanche now serving as Deputy Attorney General after previously representing Donald Trump as a defense attorney, remains at the center of discussion about the Justice Department's independence and public trust. Todd Blanche, even when he was getting interviewed yesterday, said, I'm his lawyer, and then right back to, I was his lawyer. First of all, my thoughts on all of this is like, okay, as a person that you are, as a leader that you are not a very good leader, and you're not a very good person in general when you are putting people in leadership positions that personally should not be in those leadership positions, and the people around you know that should not be in those leadership positions. But the reason that you're putting them there is because you're such a big pile of crap. Those are the only friends that you have left, and you have to have some people that are close to you that you can trust and believe in, that are not going to screw you over. That is exactly what Trump has been doing with his cabinet this whole time. These people that are crazy loyal to this turd of a president that we have. And I'm so tired of these interviews that we see in these committee hearings where it's just giving these people a platform to show that they are turds. And we sit here and we try to, like, senators will get up there and they'll try to spin it, and they'll try to get them on a question. I feel like you're doing them, you're helping them more than you are helping the cause of pointing out this piece of crap. Because when you give them a platform, when you give them a microphone, and they can say things and use viral clips to show that they stood up to the senator that's a Democrat or whatever, it just turns back on us. And I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of this corruption that we continue to see. And that is the reason why we have this podcast. That is the reason why we're doing what we're doing and speaking truth to power, because someone needs to keep pointing out that this is a pile of crap. You cannot polish a turd, and Todd Blanche is a turd, and we need people that are actually here to serve the American people in these positions, not people here just to serve Donald Trump. And we will never get anywhere as a country if we continue to do this.
Well, I think it just shows how totally corrupt it is. He's the one that went to talk with Maxwell in prison, got her the cushy, minimum security thing, where I'm here she's getting yoga and a puppy. I don't know if that's true, but it's
just really quick, Dr. Bob, I just want to say this really quick right there. That just shows that when it comes to our president, he cares more about killing innocent people in the streets than he does about getting rid of the pedophiles that are raping and destroying young children in our country. So keep going.
Well, one thing that's interesting that has happened is that today I just got an alert from Axios, is that Tom Tillis on the Judiciary Committee, Republican from North Carolina, has said that he was withholding his vote on Blanche until Blanche meets with some Epstein survivors. And so without him doing that, without Tillis's vote, it doesn't advance to the full Senate. So we're going to watch him squirm in talking to the Epstein survivors when he's withholding the Epstein files, and people have sort of forgotten about it. Why don't we see Epstein files of headlines every day that they're not released? Another thing that we should know is that New Mexico is conducting its own investigation into Epstein's ranch, the Zorro Ranch, and Todd Blanche won't work with them to give them the information that they need from the files to continue their investigation. It's a big stonewall. And why Republicans don't see through it, and why our legislators are such cowards, is just unfathomable to me.
Spencer, do you have any thoughts before I get more mad?
Yeah, I want to see you get mad. I'm not going to stop you.
I'm just so fucking tired. Like, I don't want to keep, I cuss all the time. I know it. And I know people it's off. I just can't believe we live in a country where we are defending, like, we run on, campaigns run on, like, we're going to stop the corruption. We're going to get rid of these pedophiles. We're going to stop the killings. And then we just continue to see more of it. And we continue to see more, like we talked, like, Donald Trump ran on getting rid of endless wars, making life affordable for people, and releasing the Epstein files. Okay. And none of that has happened. So what the fuck has to happen in this country for people to wake up from this weird, crazy days Kool-Aid drinking shit that we've had? Because I'm
Democrats
so
win
tired.
in November. That's what's going to. That's the only way. But there
It
is an
shouldn't
answer
be
to that
that
question.
way.
It's not rhetorical. There could be some change. There could be some accountability if we elect Democrats in November.
Yeah, so the argument back to that, Spencer, is, well, Democrats were in charge and we still didn't release the Epstein files. So that's that again.
That's all right. The truth of that, and we have to blow that up right away. There was an active investigation going on. There was, 4
I know.
years.
I'm just saying.
Explaining
the.
By Joe Biden, through protocol and precedent, couldn't have released the Epstein files because there was active investigations going on. So when MAGA says, "Oh, what? There must be nothing there," or it's both sides, Biden couldn't have released them. So,
but the thing is, I agree with you. I understand that, and I know that you did a great job explaining to our listeners that aspect of it. But still, in my thought process, is like, how long when did Epstein? When did he pass away? It's been a long time ago. When did all this come to light? The investigations and everything that we've seen. It was a while ago. It hasn't been just recently that this guy died and these people have been raped and destroyed. This has been something that's been going on for a while, and I don't understand, as an American citizen, why so many Americans are okay with it. And I'm not saying they're okay with the raping or whatever, but they're defending themselves. And these people, Ashley Hinson, you said Ryan Feenstra, all Miller Meeks, all these people that are doing all they can to make sure that these files are not being released the way they're supposed to be released, or doing all they can to make sure that this idiot who is leading our country continues to be the turd that he is. Like, I grew up, and I know all of us did. There's separate branches of government. We know the separations of power. We understand all this stuff. Why are people so terrified? And it just shows to me that people care more about staying in their power, staying in their spot, staying where they are, than they actually do about representing the people and fighting for the people they're supposed to represent. And that is the most infuriating thing for me, being someone who's a working class, who's never had a dollar in his life and has had a chance to run for Senate, to watch that continue to happen. Because it's like the whole reason I'm here, the whole reason I'm doing this podcast is because people like you won't stand up for people, and we need people in this country to understand that we're all in this together. And the only way that our kids and our families are ever going to understand that you cannot rape somebody, you cannot be a pedophile, you cannot kill people, is to have these people held accountable. And we're continuing to kick this fucking can down the road. And it's like, what's going to happen? I know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. Spencer, you know what's going to happen. Donald Trump is going to pass away eventually, never being held accountable for the shit that he's done. And all these other billionaires are the same way. And it's fucking disgusting. And we can't sit here and tell kids to follow the rules when our own leadership won't follow the rules. So we wonder why there's this division, and we wonder why we're so angry all the fucking time. It's because we're watching this world, and we're watching leadership not be leaders for everybody. We're watching it only for one side, or only to protect themselves, so they continue to get more money, continue to rape kids, continue to do crazy, disgusting shit. While all of us, if I went out there and did the shit that they're doing, I would never see the light of day again, because I'd be in prison. Because why? We can't have working class people doing that, but we can have our leaders and our billionaires doing it. That is the precedent that they are setting, and it's fucking wrong. And I'm just tired of it. And so when I see Todd Blanche get up there and all these Pete Hegseth and all these turds get interviewed, I can't stand giving these guys any platform or any way to speak their trash and try to defend themselves. The other guy I saw was the I can't remember his name, the guy who's secretary of it was intelligence or whatever it is. I can't remember his name, but they were asking him specifically to his face, did Donald Trump win the election? Who won the election in 2020? And he wouldn't answer that question because he can't stand up to this orange idiot. And it blows my mind how people want to talk about core values and family values and we're a Christian nation and we're all this, and but then you're allowing a guy who has had multiple affairs, raped people in the Epstein files, continue to spew this nonsense. Like, what do we got to do? Like, I feel like, what do we got to do to wake people up? Like you got to shake people or something, because I'm just tired. I know I'm beating a dead horse, and I know I'm just ranting, but I'm just so tired of seeing it. That is my frustration getting out. That's what I should have put down for what's making me cuss, because good God, dude, I don't get
Gonna
it.
say, should we save the other one for the next week? Because that was a pretty good rant, buddy.
Yeah.
The answer is there's too much money to be made off of lies and division that the MAGA media produces. As long as the MAGA media exists to make money, they will continue to do that. And until the American people realize that they've been misled for generations, that's the only time they're going to wake up.
Here's how I'm going to transfer into my what's making Nathan cuss. So where I know we're going a little long here, so we can get this in there. So what is making Nathan cuss? I want to just highlight why isn't marijuana legal in Iowa yet? The refusal to legalize recreational marijuana despite neighboring states generating tax revenue, creating jobs, and allowing adults to make their own choices. I know this for a lot of people, Dr. Bob. I can look at your face and I can tell when you are uncomfortable about things or when you generally don't care about something. But here's why I wanted to put this on here, and here's why it makes me cuss. So I have a lot of friends across this country that drive everywhere across this country. I just drove to North Carolina and back, and I had a friend that drove from Minnesota through Iowa and then down to the Missouri to Kansas City. I think he was going to a Twins Royals game or Royals baseball game or something. Anyways, he said that he stopped just past the Iowa border, a place called Eagleville that has a dispensary there, okay? Legally able to do. Pulled in, and he said all he saw was Iowa license plates in the drive-through, in the parking lot. Iowa license plates. And what that tells me is we are losing so much money to Missouri and neighboring states because we are, for whatever, lack of a better term, marijuana prudes in Iowa that can't understand what that could potentially do, the benefits of it to our state. For example, the amount of money that we are in a deficit, the amount of money we are having with our capital and our budget and just trying to finance schools, trying to finance roads, trying to finance the things we need in the state, we're putting our nose up to an area where we could potentially bring in billions and billions of dollars. And that is why I love Rob Sand and what he said about trying to legalize marijuana in Iowa and making it like alcohol, because in this country we can drink and drive and we can have a good time and get hungover and do stupid shit, but we can't smoke a blunt, we can't eat an edible. We can't do that here in Iowa. And our schools and our infrastructure and our whole lives are harder and harder. It's unaffordable because for whatever a lack of a reason, we have more people that are pointing at it and going, it's bad because jazz musicians in the 20s used it, and we can't do that. I'm so tired of you could come at me, anybody can come at me with these stupid ass arguments about why we shouldn't do it, and I'll give you 150 more arguments of why we should be doing it. And I'm so tired of the government, the people that are against this, that are saying, hey, don't tread on me, we need small government, trying to dictate what I can and cannot put in my damn body. So the way I look at this whole aspect is, you want division in this country to go away? You want hate and anger to go away in this country? Let people take an edible and chill the fuck out. How about we just do that, especially here in Iowa, because that's what we need more than anything, and we can generate money and revenue off of it to be able to support the things that we need. So that's why I'm fucking cussing today, because that is insane. Like, everything I talked about today is insanely idiotic. It blows my mind that we live in this country where marijuana is not legal, where we're shooting people in the streets because they're brown, where we can't train people, where we have the corruption that we have at the top of people in Donald Trump's inner circle defending him and protecting him. And all we want in this country, all middle-aged, middle class, working class people want is an opportunity to get home at the end of the day and relax. Most of them crack open a beer. That's no big job here in Iowa and across the country. Most people go out and smoke cigarettes all day long. That's no big deal, even though it causes cancer. But we can't have an edible. We can't have THC products to make sure that people have a mellow out and an opportunity. Here's the thing that drives me nuts. more people, and this is just my own statistic, my own thought process, more people are prone to cause problems and have anger issues and have domestic disturbances and just outright violence with alcohol than they are with THC and marijuana. And if we're trying to make our life safer and protecting people and we're trying to give people opportunities, we need to have it legal in Iowa to bring that revenue in, and we need people to calm the hell down, and that does it. Spencer, Dr. Bob, what are your thoughts before I end?
Legalize it, man. Simple.
I think
Absolutely.
my thoughts before we end is I think you need a couple edibles to chill out.
He'll get
That's
to
what
it,
we should
Dr.
do.
Bob.
See, that's what we need to do, Dr. Bobby. I mean, it's in Eagleville, so what we need to, all three of us need to get on here with edibles sometime and just see how calm Nathan's no longer screaming and cussing. It's more like Nathan's just trying to eat everything in the house or something.
It's
But-
either give you some edibles or tase you.
Either way, but that is what, again, why I love Rob Sand coming out and talking about it. You haven't seen a lot of people talk about it. I do believe that Iowa really needs to get in that aspect, because I truly believe, here's my general thought. It doesn't even have to be marijuana. Iowa needs to be looking at different ways to bring revenue in, and we can't be putting our nose up to certain things, especially stuff like marijuana, where I think we need to be doing more research into it, understanding what we can do, how it can help benefits, how it can be turned into medicine for people that are having issues. And I know, having PTSD, I know a lot of veterans across the country who smoke marijuana to deal with their PTSD. So I would love to see that aspect pushed forward. That's how I've thought about it for a long time. You got to walk this fine line in Iowa when you talk about it, and I think that's ridiculous because it's so taboo. But it's only taboo because we have elderly population in Iowa that are scared of those jazz musicians and the jazz man's devil lettuce. So we need to
It
make
also goes
it.
back to the liquor lobby.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's another thing, Spencer. You're more mad. We can sponsor NASCAR cars with alcohol again, and they can be driving around with sponsors of alcohol, but we can't. Don't be touching edibles. Don't be touching marijuana in this country. You do not do that in here. Why? So that's my thought process. Iowa needs to stop putting their nose up to it and start trying to put their arms around it and go, this is an opportunity for us to generate some revenue. I know it won't generate a ton more since we have so many other states around us that already have it. But at the end of the day, we have these governors saying, like, we got to keep jobs in Iowa. We got to keep people in Iowa. These gubernatorial candidates saying that we need people to stay here. Well, if my friend sees all these cars in Missouri with Iowa plates going to something, put that in Iowa, they wouldn't have to go anywhere. And you're keeping that revenue right here. Not just that revenue, but the money they're paying for gas, the money they're paying for food, all of that. So let's do the right thing and make it legal here in Iowa and give us a little bit more chance, and maybe we'll all be a little bit more friendly because we'd all be a little bit more stoned. So either way, that is what's making Nathan cuss today. I appreciate Ryan Peterman for being on here. He actually texted me a little bit ago, and he said he loved being on here. We'll definitely.
That's great.
I feel like all of us could sit there and just like story time. Like, Ryan, tell us about flying. Go.
Please. Yes, that was fantastic.
So I appreciate Ryan being on. Please check him out. Please check out his website. Check him out on social media. We'll put the links when we post this. And everybody else who's listening and likes what you're hearing and likes what you hear we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Substack. There's no excuse not to listen, but do me a favor. Share it. Share it. If you like it, please share it, because we want more people to experience this, be around us, and understand what we're saying when we're speaking truth to power. I do also want to say, we do have a couple good shows coming up next week, so hopefully you'll be tuned in next week. Next Tuesday, we have Adam Peters with Iowa, running for Iowa House District 97. He's the Democratic candidate there. And on Thursday next week will be interesting because we'll have Chris Jones, candidate for Iowa State Secretary of Agriculture. I know Dr. Bob's a good friend of Chris Jones as well. We'll be talking a lot about water quality.
That will be a great show. Yes.
Great shows coming up next week. We even more coming up at the end of the month. I know we have Caitlin Dre coming on. We also have a candidate in Ohio that's going to be joining us and talking about what's going on across the country as well, following that. So we got a lot of great stuff coming up on Sage Against the Machine podcast. I appreciate you all again for listening, downloading, being a part of this, but please share it as much as you possibly can. Let people know that we're trying to get the word out and we're trying to speak truth to power. Anybody else, Dr. Bob, Spencer, any last words before I say goodbye?
Just thanks for everybody for viewing, listening, sharing, subscribing, liking.
There we go.
Thank you.
There we go. With that, thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the flippity flip.
Inside your